If you've been watching a lot of my videos lately, you've been noticing that I've been talking a lot about this being some kind of fake stock market crash. We actually started mentioning it here. Obviously, we head down lower and we started talking about it even more down towards this area on Monday. And ever since then, we've really been coming up. So what we need to figure out today is things you need to be aware of. If you do not know these type of things, if you're not trading in this way and you don't have this type of mentality, this can really beat you up. So I want you to notice when everyone is saying crash, 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 if we just pay attention to the signals here, we notice that there could be some kind of bounce. Now we have to see how high up that bounce is going to take us. Is it going to take us to all-time highs, or are we going to test some key level and then be able to break down? And that's something we need to watch, because over in the past, whenever we found that bottom, even when we do go test those levels, we see drop-offs. When we test those levels, we see drop-offs. And so this area right here is going to be very, very important, and we're going to pay attention to that live. But mainly live, we've been talking about how this is a fake stock market crash right now, but it can prove itself as a real one if we do something pretty simple here. So we're going to talk about some technical analysis for the SPY Qs and looking over at Bitcoin and a couple other things. But for now, we want to keep this very, very concise in this video to make sure we're paying attention to the right things when it comes to the overall market. And as we see on our chart, we have a MACD that has not crossed up yet. We have an RSI that has not crossed the center line, and we have price action that is, as of right now, testing that 9-day moving average. But I want to tell you right now, one more strong green bar like this, and we most likely will be crossing up this daily chart. So we really have to pay attention to Monday. All right, Monday this week, if you're a trader and you haven't been paying attention, this is the week you need to pay attention, because this is either going to tell you whether or not you are going to head actually higher to all-time highs, maybe test some key levels and get to that all-time high, or are we just going to see this roll over? There are some big things happening over the next, I would say, 2 weeks. And so if you're someone who maybe trades, takes a good trade and then maybe you don't pay attention for a couple of days, I'm just going to highly encourage you to just stay aware of what's going on. Obviously, if you're being patient, I really respect that. But what we really need to take forward through this video is we're going to be talking a lot about things that relate to trading like water, something we talk about in the course very thoroughly. You have to be open to both scenarios. That way, if you see that reversal signal in a key area like this one, you can actually be a part of that move. Maybe this needs some kind of stronger base before it happens, but who's to say that? What if this is just another lower high and that actually heads down to lower levels? What if this is a moment where something breaks in the system? We are at one of those times where any major rollover can lead to further downside. And you want to know why I'm really talking about that. It's because of the monthly chart. So we're just going to peek at this once on the SPY. Okay, just note that this signal is alive and well on the Qs as well. So what we want to pay attention to here is, well, we've seen some kind of a down month. We're starting to wick up, but during this month, we could curl up to this area and curl back over. The main reason we want to pay attention to what's going on right now, pay attention to the daily, pay attention to the 2 hours on this move up so far, which seems very controlled, doesn't it, on the daily scale, is we want to pay attention to the monthly after that. If this starts to break down, this is why we're aware of any downside, because if this starts to cross over, that is divergence on a monthly scale. On a monthly scale, that can lead to the monthly going into a negative territory, a negative trend. And what do we notice about the MACD for the monthly? Well, we have rarely, if ever, been in a negative trend. The last time we were in a negative trend was 07, 08. Okay, so we're in one of those times where you have to be aware over the next 2 weeks, are we actually going to curl up and see higher prices, or are we going to curl down? So the main thing I would pay attention to here is the swing trade signal. If the swing trade signal shows itself, well, what's the most likely thing? If the swing trade signal shows itself, which we do have a swing trading course down there, but I really think people would benefit more from the technical analysis, the overall technical analysis course using indicators and divergence. But for the most part, the swing trade is what we're going to pay attention to on the daily scale. That crosses up. This RSI crosses up above the center line. The MACD crosses up above the center line. Hey, what's the most likely thing to happen from here? Well, the most likely thing to happen is if I break through this level, I'm either going to test this high right here, or I'm going to go make a new one, and we might be right back into a bullish trend over time. So we have to pay attention to what's happening over the next, I would say, 2 weeks to see if we're going to be able to break through that level in some way. And we'll pay attention attention to the signals. We go live every single morning, so please join us as we will be going live all week long. Please subscribe. Make sure that you have those notifications on so you can join us. We look at stocks. Whenever someone is asking me about a stock, yes, I pay attention. Is the MACD curling up? Is the RSI getting above that center line? Is the price action taking back the 9? Is the price action taking back all the moving averages? I pay attention to all those things. I just do it very quickly live, but I also pay attention to something here. This is very, very controlled as of right now. You see that it's pretty controlled. We haven't gotten that real breakthrough moment that then kind of moves sideways, breakthrough moment, then we move sideways, then we breakthrough moment, right? We haven't really seen that breakout moment. It's just kind of controlled to the upside. So we always have to be aware of downturns. We're going to talk a little bit more about that on Sunday. So subscribe if you want to go through the shorter time frames with us on Sunday, where we're going to update the weekly and the daily expected moves. The weekly expected move last week came in handy, right? We went down to it right away and boom, we head up. That is the biggest probable thing, right? 68% chance to bounce from that level. You bounce from that level. So I'm going to give you those new levels in the near future. Now, Friday was kind of a dud day. Most of the other days we did see a touch of the daily expected move. So we're going to update those for you as well. And we were below the monthly. So everything down here was saying this is over exaggerated and we need to bounce, which makes sense because we saw volatility as high as the COVID crash. So people were very, very scared at that moment. And guess what? You know, when everyone's fearful, that's when you see a bounce. So from this point, though, you want to see if these things are curling up, and we can go switch over to the Qs to keep chatting about this stuff. We see the Qs. What happened with these? Well, we went down to a weekly expected move. We're outside of the monthly, and the most likely thing is we're bouncing. Okay, so is the most likely thing for August that we're going to do this actually by the end of the month? Not necessarily, actually. The most probable thing is you're going to land within these yellow lines. So wherever this weekly is this coming week, the most likely thing is, hey, we could pull back, but most likely we do remain in these yellow lines here. So just pay attention to that as we update those weekly ranges, and you really need to keep the monthly in mind. We give out the monthlies on Patreon. You get the monthlies for every stock that we cover on this channel. Now we're seeing this as well. Relatively controlled, right? Relatively controlled. And weirdly enough, it's getting tighter. It's getting tighter. Okay, now I don't think there's very much wedging on the shorter time frames, but we have to be aware if it needs to double dip in order to make that divergence, right? In order to make a stronger base. As of right now, you have a pretty strong base in here with the shorter time frames. So paying attention to the swing trade signal can really help you. If you're able to confirm that swing trade signal, right? We confirm that swing trade signal. We confirm that on the RSI. We confirm that on the MACD. You can start to see good green bars like this, and maybe even get outside of a weekly range and see something crazy. We talked about this area up here. So if you're bearish, if you're looking for this to not cross, this area right here is going to be important. I would say this little box right in here could hold as some resistance. So that's our first goal. If you want to get bullish here, we have to get through that area. We already saw some reversal signals down here with the shorter time frames we can talk about on Sunday. But for now, on the daily time frame, we need to see, is this going to be a strong move like this that is able to hold? If that is able to hold, a reaction up to this area in the coming week would make sense, something like a 470, 475, somewhere in that area up here. And then we're able to curve down, right? Pull back. There are pullbacks in the market, and we could see a left, a head, and a right shoulder. That is a very, very good formation for us to actually head higher. And I think all of that will come to fruition if we just get a very simple crossing of the MACD, a simple crossing of the RSI here. I think that is what we need to look for in the shorter time frames. We're going to see if this turns down. Why? Because if this reacts up and rejects, we need to pay attention to that moment. Yes, you can still go make that stronger base and maybe end up back in here by the end of the month. But at the same time, if you curl up and you curl back down, you are in an area where crazy things happen. When you get outside of these yellow lines on the monthly scale, crazy things happen. It's a 32% chance to see something crazy. What does something crazy look like? Something crazy would look like, oh, we react down into this zone, maybe get a retest, and then we actually head lower. So we have to pay attention to rollovers. And the reason we have to pay attention to rollovers, I'll just do it one more time, we might as well, is the monthly chart. The monthly chart is showing you big divergences on the MACD, on the RSI at the same time. So if these curl over, that is a sign that there is weakness on the monthly scale. So that is why we are paying close attention to, even right here, we're paying close attention attention to any curlovers. We see that rig behavior, and we told you it would head up higher. It did. Now we're seeing a similar style of bottom, and now we have to see, is that going to be able to confirm that swing trade signal? You'll just notice that back in this area, the last time that we were kind of consolidating and kind of getting some kind of pullback, what happened down in these areas? Well, everyone got overzealous thinking it was going to crash down, and we said, hey, watch out, it looks like this is about to head up. It gets the higher low, and then we curl up on this MACD. Boom, like this. So if we are going to get a higher low here, you notice that the MACD did not cross until we got that confirmed move over this key point. Well, right now that key point would be here. So if we do pull down, look for if that base is out at any time. The 30-minute chart is what we're going to look at on Sunday for that. Please subscribe so you're aware of these things. But you notice that when we do get that swing trade signal, what ends up happening over time here? Well, we get the swing trade signal. Right here is where we said, hey, we have high potential to short squeeze now. We actually said it way down here. We said, you get above this high, you're probably going to short squeeze. What happens over time? We just go higher. All right, we went higher over time, which just tells you we need to pay attention to the swing trade because that can happen again. But I do notice that pullbacks do happen. Boom, pullback does happen. Where would that most likely take place? Well, if we see that positivity come in, this area here this week would be where I'd pay attention to for some kind of drop, and that's what we need to be looking for this week. And then if any kind of weakness is in this move, we will pay attention. If that is able to just roll right back over, we still have to treat that as a very bad thing. I want you to notice the last time we were doing this behavior here, right after we curled up, what happened? This thing curled down for a brief moment, but it was able to confirm back up and get above this level, retake that high, and it curled back up into positive territory. Actually on this bar right here, very, very good bar. We see boom to the upside, breaks the high, and then heads higher. That is what we are going to be looking for in the current price action over the next couple of weeks. If we start to see those things, then it is a high likelihood we are going to test the all-time high, if not go make a new one. And maybe we need to pay attention to the next big reversal signal that we see up here on the daily chart. So we could see a little bit more positivity coming forward, but we need to pay attention to the next 2 weeks to make sure this isn't going to be some kind of fake out, some kind of move like this, and then it starts to drop. So we'll pay attention to the signals in here, but I want you to be aware of just the very, very simple thing. Sometimes keeping it simple is a better way to look at markets. We notice that it is still in its channel. You see these lines in here, still in its channel overall. And if that just curls up, that was a swing trade, and the last time that happened, ooh, to the upside. There is a reason we have to be a little more cautious of this one. Okay, we have to be a little more cautious of a lower high. It's because you're going down closer to the edge, closer to where something really bad can happen. If you break out of that channel, you can start to make a channel in the other direction. But the other thing is the positioning of the MACD. We talk about this in the swing trading course. The positioning of the MACD is what we need to pay attention to a lot of the time. If you see that curl down to the center line and it's still within range to go positive, that's a great probable move to the upside. This one is a little bit lower, so it might run out of steam at some point and then see that curl back down. All right, this was closer to positive territory, so bigger positive trend. This one is further away, so is that really going to be a good positive trend? We will find out. We will pay attention to the signals, but for now, if that swing trade confirms up, I would really expect a test of this level, and if that's able to base out, or maybe we just break through that level and we see some kind of squeeze, as the PCC has been high for a while. So that is something to pay attention to here. And what else can we pay attention to? Well, something that's moving right now. Maybe we pay attention to Bitcoin. Bitcoin has seen a surge lately, a surge. And I want you to just look at this and really think with some common sense. Just some common sense here is all we need. This point right here took us to go test all-time highs, pretty much, right? It took us to test the last highs up in here. So now we are closer to the center line than the last time. So even though we are seeing lower price action, we're actually closer in this area to seeing upside, which tells me there might be some hidden divergence right here. All right, so there might be some hidden divergence on the MACD that actually sends us into positive territory a little bit easier. And so if we're able to break through this little zone, take back that 200, what's going to happen? You're going to cross on this MACD, right? You're going to cross on this MACD and you're closer to going positive, which tells you this actual positive move could be better than this one. That is what the MACD is telling us with Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin, a risky asset, is going to head higher, then we would assume that other risky assets, maybe like tech stocks, a little bit risky, maybe those, maybe semiconductors, maybe something like that, maybe things like Nvidia. Let's just think of it very like with some common sense and say, if this does cross up and gets through this zone, test the high, go make a new one. That is what Bitcoin looks like it is trying to do if it crosses up on this MACD. Now, we are running up into our zone. So we made this zone a while back, and we just said, you know, when we did break down, someone asking like, where would we head to if we get a bounce? Well, you're probably going to retest this zone, okay, because this is the breakdown area. So what do we do? Well, we tested the zone. Now we're kind of consolidating in front of it. If we continue to consolidate, hey, good shot to break up. But all I have to pay attention to is, do we get a green bar to close and cross up this MACD and cross that RSI as it almost, you notice the RSI almost went above that center line. And then what happens? We start to consolidate. So it has not given you that signal. Right now, you only see price action above the 9. You're still below the other moving averages. So you're waiting on a MACD cross or at least an RSI to get above the center line and close that way. That's what I'm looking for from Bitcoin. But Bitcoin, if we take the common sense angle, we can say that this low was a pretty good move. And now the MACD is at a higher position, so we can see a better move because it's closer to going positive, aka that positivity will kick in a little bit sooner than last time. That's what I see in this area from Bitcoin, and I think that could give us a hint of what's going to happen in the overall market as people are still scared of some kind of crash, which is very well granted. Like, it is valid, right? It's very credible to be scared of a crash in this area. Just because of what's happening with volatility. But we are going to look at those signals in a moment just to show you how this stuff is really looking like we could see a squeeze. We could see this as a lower high. So we have to be trading like water, something we talk about a lot on this channel. Now, the last stock I wanted to look at was actually Nvidia. I wanted to look at Nvidia because we're in this pretty downside move here in almost a channel at this point. And we have a point to pay attention to up here on the daily scale. And look how close this is to crossing. So if we get one positive bar like this, you will be testing the top of that channel. If you can break through that, you're heading towards this zone. Now, what's the good part about this zone? This zone is exactly where, if we're going to be bullish, this zone is exactly where we can see positivity. We can see a pullback, right? If we can build up and break through. You'll notice the last time that we were in this zone, we reacted up to it, we failed, right? We break through a zone, we retest it, we come back down. So this is the point of importance, right? It's a point of, it's the breakdown area. So we knew when this was bouncing, this was most likely going to test that area. Ooh, we fall off again. Now we've created a pretty strong base down here. So if this is going to curl up, I would assume it is going to test that zone in some way, maybe curl down and then curl right back up. Doesn't it look a little bit like the Qs? If we just put a line across here and we go, okay, there's our neckline. This is how we would break through this trend line, in my opinion. So that is what I'm going to be paying attention to this week. We give weekly ranges where that most likely will show us how high or low this thing could go, and it might show us exactly where this thing is going to see a pullback. What if this week we actually see a weekly range that is something towards like a 115, and then we get excited, we get outside of that, and then we pull back down and curl right back up into positive territory. Ultimately, though, we need to pay attention. Is the swing trade signal confirming, and is that unconfirming shortly after, right? Is that actually crossing up on this MACD? That is the swing trade signal. RSI getting above the center line, that's the swing trade signal. And price action getting a green bar here above the 9 are all swing trade signals. You're still above the 200. Keep it simple, because that can help you out in the long run. We could see some little pullbacks. Maybe they're a little more dramatic as volatility is higher, but at the end, maybe earnings is able to send you through the roof, as Nvidia does a lot of the time. And we know Nancy Pelosi ain't selling this yet, so maybe there's a little more positivity left for a while. So these are the things you really have to pay attention to, with things like Nvidia showing good basing out, with the SPY and the Qs looking like a swing trade signal, with even Bitcoin showing you, hey, I might have a better curl up this time than last time. So that's why we're paying close attention to upside while everyone else is still screaming crash. And we could see a stronger base form. We could see a crash. We're aware of a crash because we trade like water. We're aware of that. But we know that the simplest thing the stock market could do right now, the simplest thing Bitcoin could do right now, is curl up and continue a bullish trend. That's overall what we need to see. It's overall in still a weekly bullish trend. It's still in a monthly bullish trend. So the daily side is going to go negative sometimes. And this is a 10% pullback, which we see plenty of times throughout the year. Really, you see about one a year. So this actually might be an opportunity here. Now, we still have to pay attention to if things are rolling over, because we don't want to be caught up in any kind of crash. And I think that's how people need to think. But volatility doing some interesting things here, and you see how that positivity can come in right away as those cross. So what we need to pay attention to with volatility, or going forward, if we're going to see some kind of fake out move where stocks go up for a couple of days, the Bitcoin goes up for a couple of days, and then that fails, we need to pay attention to when the VIX actually tests the 200 and the 50. Those have crossed. That is a major crash signal, and we are aware of it. We trade like water, but the trickiest thing they could do is put a bunch of fear into the market, get volatility going, and then actually curl this MACD over, which is a sign that you are going to see more of a squeeze. If this was able to react quickly down and wick up, that's what we'll pay attention to early on in the week. But for now, if this volatility is able to cross over on this MACD, hey, we might test this area. We'll be aware if that actually starts to reverse, and we'll make sure to manage our risk, mitigate our risk. But for the most part, if this would actually cross and the volatility actually goes back below the 50 and the 200, hey, you might squeeze down for a while down towards 1212. So you're in a time where we could see a squeeze possibly for like a week or two. And then we see, is that squeeze going to lead us into all-time highs? Are we building the structure? Do we not see reversal signals? Or are we going to see this actually break through and go to all-time highs, right? Break through volatility, get that thing down so the SPY can go higher, or are we going to see it react off the 200 and the 50 area to remain back in this market? That is why we need to pay attention to this time. Now, if this does leak down like this, we could see reactions, but for the most part, you would say, hey, we're below the 200 at that point. So to clear it up, make it very, very clear here, volatility will show us a lot. Are we seeing basing out signals here on shorter time frames? As we'll look at that, we'll pay attention to that throughout the week, so make sure you're subscribed. But is that showing us basing out signals for a big bounce to curl up back up this daily MACD if that crosses over? Or are we going to see volatility be able to break completely down below the 200? Are we going to see spikes in volatility early on in the week? There's a ton that can happen, and that's why the overall theme of this video is to convince you, hey, you need to start trading like water, which might mean you need to learn a little bit over the weekend, and I respect you if you're going to do that. As always, I hope you guys go out and do something fun, treat yourself to a nice meal, be mentally prepared for this market going forward, because it is a harder market to trade in. These are markets that I actually really enjoy. You've probably heard me taking a lot more plays recently, and that's because when volatility is higher, I really benefit from that, and I like these kinds of markets a lot. So if you want to learn this type of stuff, the $100 course is 90% off. The technical indicators course, where you use indicators, divergence, and weekly ranges to make trades, to learn how to trade, that can really benefit you, and it'll teach you thoroughly about everything we're talking about in these videos and how you can see these type of trade setups on shorter time frames. Even on bigger time frames, you can see it. So that's something to look into over the weekend if you need to learn a little bit and this market has really been beating you up. I think that course would really help you out. But as always, I want you guys to go out and have some fun and reload before we see a bunch more price action this week. And I will be live all week, but overall, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. I hope you have a fantastic weekend with your family, with yourself, treating yourself to some good food, cooking yourself a nice meal, go and taking the dog for a walk, enjoy it, because it can be taken away at any moment. We're seeing a lot of things geopolitically and just politically here in the country, domestically, that could send the world for a little bit of a tizzy, all right? So I want you to make sure to take advantage of everything you have right now. Really start to be grateful. That's something I'm trying to do every single day, and just make sure I'm putting that positivity in right now, as times are good and times could get tougher going forward. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I look forward to talking about some stocks with you on Sunday, and then live video come Monday. So thank you guys for watching. Have a great weekend. Peace.